Okay, we're back. We're live. 1 o'clock show. Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We're going to talk today with a bunch of people from Farrington High School. What a thrill. We're going to talk about moving Hawaii towards sustainable energy. And their teacher is Corey Harkins. He's here, Coyote. And we have Kyle, Catherine, Michael, Khervin, Maria Tome from the State Energy Office, and Justin. And we're going to kind of try to give them an idea where energy is these days, where it needs to go, and who's going to take it there, including them. Okay, and we're gonna in general invite their questions and your questions if you're watching. So let's scope this out at first. Corey, can you tell us about this class? What kind of a class is this? Environmental energy, is it? And how big is the class in total, and what are they studying?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on today. Like I said, my name is Corey Harkins. I also go by my nickname Coyote, and this is an advanced placement environmental science class. And so they are studying everything from our planet's resources to how humans interact with those resources. Currently, we are in a unit where we're studying energy consumption and production, as well as atmospheric pollution. And so the students have been diving into all kinds of issues surrounding Hawaii's energy plans and understanding how to reduce our reliance on oil imports. Okay,
and is this program part of their final grade?
So it is not. These students, we have about 60 students in the advanced placement environmental science class. And these students were nominated by their peers to actually represent, what their classes are studying. And some of them have energy projects where they're thinking about the future. So in here, we probably have some of our future energy grid computer programmers, some of our future energy activists, some of our future politicians, maybe. So hopefully they will be able to represent our class well and, kind of report on what we're thinking about, what our teenagers are thinking about when it comes to the future of our energy.
Well, let's take a spin. Kyle, what is your interest in energy, and what are you thinking about?
Okay, so if we start with my personal project was that right now we use mostly gasoline in Hawaii, but we want to transition away from that. So what I planned on doing was I took a quote from Elon Musk a couple of years back that said that we can power the entire continental US just by putting a solar farm in the state of Utah somewhere, in a chunk of Utah. So I try to put that, and I try to incorporate that into my own energy project, and said that we can power most of Hawaii just by putting a solar farm somewhere. And just because it's not always sunny, you can leave the rest of the things to what it originally was, which was gasoline. That's what I did for my project personally.
Okay, well, he's a good guy to follow. I mean, he's worth 155 billion. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but who knows? Maybe you can achieve that. Keep trying. Catherine, what are you interested in? What do you see as your future in energy?
Mostly see is probably seeing a lot of wind turbines or a lot of solar panels being used, because that is two of the most efficient things. Well, one of them, because all renewable energy sources need to be used in order to help get rid of the petroleum that we're mostly using here in Hawaii. So yeah, that's what I'm mostly interested in, just seeing all the wind turbines and the solar panels.
Good. Oh God, I can see Maria's getting really interested in engaging with you. Michael, how about you?
So for my energy plan or project, what I see Hawaii's energy needs are obviously to transition away from non-renewables like coal and oil and try to get more clean energy. Personally, I was interested in nuclear power because my cousin's in the Navy. He worked on nuclear power on a couple of aircraft carriers. So I think that, of course, nuclear power is the most bang for its buck, but is there a way to implement it in Hawaii? And is there also a way to make it cleaner so there's less risk of a nuclear fallout?
Yeah, when you're talking about nuclear, you really are talking about bang for a buck. We may discuss that further. Khervin, how about you? What are you interested in, and what do you see your role in the energy industry going forward?
So one idea that my group came up with was something that I didn't know, but as I further research about it, we looked into an offshore solution, which is offshore renewable energy, which means like putting solar panels, putting wind turbines onshore. And as I research about it, it's more efficient because, take for example, 29% of our is only land mass under Earth, while the rest is ocean. And wind turbines, when put onshore, is only harnessing a small fraction of those wind. So if we implement it on offshore, it's going to generate more electricity, more energy, and I think that's a sustainable project for Hawaii to use.
I agree with you. How about Justin?
So for my group, we had a lot of brainstorming and ideas, but so for example, we had if I can pull it up real quick, we had the idea of kind of turning the public transportation, because here in the state, using the bus is definitely a more popular option. So maybe have more hybrid buses on the road, using both electric and gasoline, or whatever is available, of course, and perhaps even double deckers to kind of fit more people and be able to transport more in kind of more efficiently. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe open
But
the top for the tourists, like
or
in
not
London.
our, I'd say, but one of the big ideas we had for sure is on a smaller scale. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that too, for sure. Definitely get some of that London vibe going on here in the state too. But right, sorry. So on a smaller scale for the school, because I believe it was a year or 2 years back, they announced renovation plans. So we thought that maybe we could use the renovation of the school to our advantage to kind of implement more renewable energy for ourselves here, within the coming years, and hopefully for the future. Yes.
What a great idea. Corey, you have the money, the opportunity, and will DOE permit you to build something at the school?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Thinking about our schools plans for the future, they have some pretty ambitious plans that were came up with a couple of years ago, and it's interesting to see how there were some renewable energy things that were addressed. For example, solar, especially on-site solar. I can't remember what else was addressed, but also thinking about transportation was key in that plan as well, and how students are getting to school. Our school is relatively urban, so a lot of our students are walking, and a lot of our students are taking the bus. I would say the vast majority are walking or taking the bus. So we deal with very different issues than other schools have that rely more on individual cars dropping them off, and the carbon dioxide emissions that are associated with that, and the oil use that is associated with that. So yeah, our school as a whole has very different issues than other schools when it comes to energy use, for sure.
Yeah, and they have you.
Yeah.
And we have Maria Tome. Okay, you guys, Maria is going to help you understand the context of your remarks to us on what is happening in energy in the state. She's also going to tell you, this is a 6-hour conversation. She's also going to tell you what legal structures, what government structures are running it, so you know to whom you should make your application after graduation. Okay? Go, Maria.
Thanks, Jay. So, yeah, I was looking forward to talking to you guys today and hearing what you were interested in. I'm so impressed. You guys are really right on top of it. And Corey, congratulations and thank you so much for this opportunity. I was thinking, well, let's see what information, what graphics or visuals might be helpful. And I thought, well, we've got this maybe slide one. we've got an Energist website that does show a bunch of information about where the different resources are. So I don't know if you've discovered this. Has anybody on this call discovered this site yet? Nope. Oh, goody. So, okay. So what you can do, let's see if, how do we make it bigger? We hover over the 3 dots and so this one doesn't have anything selected. You see those circles on the left? Those are different technologies you can select and it'll show you the resource. So slide 2 has the first one selected, and that's biomass. So you can see that there are different potential for biomass in different areas. Now this map, you can actually zoom in, and we're not going to do any of that now, but the idea was to have information on Hawaii's resources available to folks who were interested in what the potential was. So slide 3 looks at the next one. Let's see, geothermal. So you can see on the Big Island, and they're also the very deep red, you know, you've got high temperature resource, and then you've got some potential for warm water. And some of these are probabilities, and of course, based on some studies. And so if somebody has studied something, then there might be information on it. And if nobody's ever studied it, then it might not be showing up. So that's another area for research into some, especially geothermal. So there's been a lot of research on the Big Island and a lot of knowledge about that, but there's potential elsewhere as well. So slide 4, we're just going down the list here. So slide 4 shows the potential for hydropower, and you see a lot of little dots. And so that's run of river hydro. So that's where you've got flowing streams. Now it depends on how much it rains, right, with hydro. But there's another resource that they're using in several locations. Where is water always flowing in an area where people are? Anybody want to guess? In pipes? Yeah. So you can actually put little tiny turbines in water pipes. You know, if you're delivering a lot of water from the wet side of the island to the dry side of the island, that's just flowing, you can actually generate some electricity from that. So that's, you know, those types of resources. Solar. Now, this one is just showing a very large grid, you know, with the solar resource. The following slide, whatever number we're on 5, 6, something. Yeah, that's just the land. And once again, you can actually find a specific parcel and see what the annual insolation, solar energy from the sun is in particular areas. But one of the points with solar that you all have picked up on is that it is available, right? On a very consistent basis. You know, every day we get some solar energy. Even when it's raining, you get a little bit of solar energy. So, you know, if you're not pitch black, you are getting some. So solar is a very interesting resource. Next slide shows, I think, wind. Am I guessing right? Yeah. So this just shows the lines of the you know, between the different levels of wind energy. I think the next graph actually shows it better. So this is a PDF of the 50-meter power density map that was produced. And this doesn't just show what's on the island. I like this particular map because it shows the whole state, including the ocean. Who was it who mentioned about the ocean? The ocean being rather large, right? Or the area covered by water is quite large. Well, it happens that when the winds come towards Hawaii, first of all, they're very smooth because they've traveled across thousands of miles of ocean without having buildings and trees and mountains in the way, right? So it's really nice, smooth, high quality wind. And then it hits Hawaii and it gets funneled between the mountains. And that's why you see between those islands that really, really powerful wind resource. And so as the technology for things like floating wind turbines, you know, gets mature, then there's more potential. But like everything else, you know, in theory, yeah, you could put one square of something in some state and there's enough energy, but that's a numerical calculation. The practical matter is that getting it from where it is to where it's needed, you know, is part of the equation. So And the next graph, I believe, gets in more into the ocean energy side of things. Yeah, OTEC. Anybody know what OTEC stands for? Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. So, you know, when you go swimming, okay, to me, it's cold, right? Especially in the winter, okay, but still, it's not as cold at the surface as it is below. Because when you go down, you know, and as you notice from the lines on the map, this also shows the ocean depth a little bit. But as you go down deeper, it gets colder. And since we have such sheer drop-offs, we don't have the continental shelf around Hawaii the way they do on the mainland. We've got quite a good depth to get to and some cooler water down there. And so that temperature differential is what powers ocean thermal energy conversion, which is not, you know, a large scale commercial yet, but Hawaii is one of the best places to do the research. And we were the pioneers in that. And then the next slide, which is our last one, I promise, is wave energy. So we have very consistent waves. We don't have those, you know, the huge quantity of ocean energy that you might get in the northern, you know, really far north, like Nova Scotia, but we do have a resource there, and we have research going on in wave energy technology as well. So those are my maps. I thought it would be just good,
Okay.
just good to show
Why don't you
that.
go to the second part of it now and say who's running, who's forming policy, who's implementing policy. You know, it's complex. There's a number of organizations, and I think these guys should have sort of a roadmap of who they are.
Okay, well, I'm with the Hawaii State Energy Office. And so we have been tasked by the legislature, right? So the legislature creates the laws and, you know, says, okay, these are the things that need to be done. And these are the assigned jobs for the various departments. And so the Hawaii State Energy Office is one of the entities working on energy. So we look at the overall energy picture. What are the resources? What are the potentials? I got one more question on the technology before we get into this, Jay, talking about the potential, right? Okay,
Sure.
There's a huge resource that I didn't mention previously. Does anybody want to guess what it is? It's a little bit of a trick question. Jay, do you know? Do you know where I'm going with this? I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with Farrington's, you know, what you're planning for for energy, right? Are you only looking at supply of energy?
Oh, I know. It is a trick question, you guys. Be careful of trick questions. Yeah.
Okay, there's a huge untapped resource of efficiency, energy efficiency. You know, let's say I
The
look at,
cheapest energy is when you don't use energy.
yeah,
It's
if I
really
look
cheap.
at a building or a school, you know, and I say, oh, well, this is how much energy we've been using. And I just look at the old energy bills and then we build to produce that same amount, assuming, you know, everything else would stay constant. If they haven't put in their energy efficient systems, their energy efficient lighting, if they're letting all the heat from the sun come right into the living space or working space, instead of insulating the roof and insulating the walls and putting on reflective coatings, you know, if they're not shading stuff and reducing a lot of the energy that's needed, then they're missing that, right? So you wind up building more than you would have needed otherwise. So that's a huge potential is on the energy efficiency side. We're also finding that with the different resources being available at different times of the day, right, that when we use energy is more and more important. So you've got, you know, demand response as well. If you can turn off some stuff when the grid needs it, or you can shift your use to when there's excess of the renewables, you know, you can be more efficient in the whole system. Okay, so back to Jay's question. The legislature is the one that makes the laws. We are administrative agency, the State Energy Office. The Public Utilities Commission regulates the private, the public utility, which is actually an investor-owned utility. And then you've got the consumer advocate who is involved in all those decisions that are debated in front of the Public Utilities Commission on the electricity side of it. But the biggest driver are both of our energy use and in deciding what gets produced and how it all gets done is the people, because, right, it's you guys. It's the people who are making the decisions about what to use and what, you know, whether they care about how we can meet our energy demands. And on the transportation side, even more so, right? Every decision we make in the electricity side as well as transportation side affects how much energy we need to support our state. I don't want to keep
Excuse
talking.
my interruption, but
Yeah.
how often is it that a bill related to increasing our use of renewables or just in energy in general, how often is it that something like that passes?
Well, every year there are a bunch that are introduced and debated, and it's very often it's changing the way the decisions are made or the targets and stuff like that, you know, or who's doing what, you know. Very often the major ones about renewable portfolio standard 100% type of thing, you know, that doesn't happen very often, because once the policy is in place, then you need to figure out how to get there. But there are an awful lot of details that do affect a lot of laws and vice versa.
And if you follow the legislature, you know that not every bill that's introduced even gets a hearing. And you know that some bills that get a hearing and that are passed and signed are not necessarily good bills. And energy is a very complex area involving a lot of people, all of whom have their own interest. So you might find lobbyists there on all sides of a given question. It's a melee every year. And as you suggest, there's a lot of bills that go in on energy. One of the big contentions, you can add to this, Maria, is the credits that renewable developers get from taxes. And that's supposed to incentivize them. And this has been a political football on solar installation credits for a long time, for the solar equipment and for the batteries that installers want to sell you. That's in play. I think it's in play this year again. It's been in play for years and years, and everybody goes in and they argue about it, and then nothing happens, and they go back to next year, have the same argument. So it's not a straight line. What else is in play, Maria?
Well, on the electric vehicle side, you know, there's a lot of interest, because it's tricky. If you want to have the electric vehicles as part of the solution, you have to be able to charge them, right? So if we are talking about a more dynamic system that is able to use resources when it's available and to put any excess energy into the vehicle batteries, then it would be best if the vehicles were plugged in during the day. You know, so efforts to have workplace charging, you know, efforts to make sure that vehicles have access to this is going to make it easier for people to select that. And conversely, if you have a demand for that electricity, then that makes it easier to justify the investments you need to make to have a smarter grid to support that, right? Because if you produce it, but nobody's using it, then that's a waste, right? But if you need it, but nobody's making it available, then, you know, then that's frustrating. So trying to get everything to come in together, that's one of the things that's an interesting topic. I don't know what you mean by in play, but it's a very interesting topic, very timely this year, especially as we're looking at the emissions from vehicles as being now the largest source of greenhouse gases.
But you can't downplay the PUC. The PUC is an activist PUC right now. They have 3 commissioners there. And their thing recently, there's a lot of dockets. A docket is like a case, you know, a matter that they're handling. And right now they're interested in moving things along so that we get more renewables by September of 2022, which is what, a year and a half away. And that's the year that the legislature decided there would be no more coal in Hawaii. Right now, there's still coal and there's still oil. And they pronounced, the legislature passed a bill and the governor signed it saying, September 2022, it's over for coal. But that
Well,
takes
that's
away
because
certain
that's-
capacity, right? And
Yeah.
the PUC is concerned that the utilities are not moving fast enough to organize the development of renewables that will take the place of coal when coal goes away. And
So basically, the coal plant was going to retire then. I mean, that was the termination date of the contract. You know, a contract is signed for a certain number of years. I think that was a 30-year contract. And so it ended at the end of August in 2022. And so what the legislature said was, you know, once that plant is retired, that's it. You know, it's not going to be extended. You know, it's not going to be increased. You know, that's it. And so that was what drove that specific date. But the 100% renewable energy by 2045 was put in place even before that, you know, 24.
5-10 years ago already.
Yeah. So it's been heading in that direction for quite a while. And so there's there's a ton more we can talk about.
Yeah, let's go to their questions, Maria.
Yeah.
Let's start. We'll just work around the room here. Michael, you've got questions up your sleeve. Why don't you pop one out and see what we can do with it?
I'm interested in the economics behind most energy methods because, like, of course, you're going to make energy to serve people, and you can provide that in terms of the value it gives to people because they need electricity to run their houses. But at one point, does like a traditional solar farm or wind farm cover its costs? Like, how is the break even on these sorts of technologies?
Very good question.
Wow, yeah, we could go on with that. Yeah.
Well, what are you comparing it to? Right?
Well, a lot of these companies are underwater. You got to start out with that thought.
Well, actually, yeah, you know, it depends what you compare it to. And in Hawaii, since we're generating so much of our electricity from oil, and oil is one of the more expensive sources, you know, the solar plus battery projects that have just been contracted for are actually cheaper than the price of oil today. And the projected price of oil, if you look at Energy Information Administration, is supposed to be going up, especially fuel oil. That was scary, you know, because the fuel oil prices are, you know, there's a combination of factors, but fuel oil is even worse than the price of crude as far as its projected increase. So if you're displacing oil, pretty much you have many, many more options that are cost effective. So yeah, in Hawaii, you know, it makes more sense and it makes sense sooner than a lot of other places. But even on the mainland, you know, the solar plus battery and even the wind are coming in cheaper than the natural gas, which was their cheapest source.
The problem with going into business developing renewables, it takes a long time to get to permitting. And it's that in itself, time is money. So if I tell you you're going to have to spend 5 years or more to get the necessary permits, and you have to pay all the people who are helping you get those permits, you have to have a lot of money to put up front in order to do that. Then you have to recover that in the course of the contract. And the contract has to get approved by the utility and by the PUC. And then we'll see if you're going to make any money. Some of them do, some of them don't. You know, it's a risky business as far as developing renewables is concerned. You have to be good, you have to have a deep pocket, and you have to have the best technology. I could go on. Next question.
Okay, so I have a question about the electronic vehicles. So I've heard that most of our energy consumption goes towards transportation, and I know we want to transition towards electronic vehicles. However, I know that cars, or most car owners, they keep their cars for 10 to 15 years at the max. So it's gonna take us a while to move to electronic cars, or to make the move. How can we not incentivize but promote electronic vehicle purchases by the consumers, just so that the electronic vehicles like go up?
Okay.
Oh, Maria, this is one for you, huh?
So electric vehicles are not actually my specialty, but it is definitely a very interesting area. One of the best things about this whole, the new electric vehicle space is that they are now more cost effective and becoming much more available. A whole bunch of manufacturers have actually announced that they're going completely electric in various years. They're not going to produce any more internal combustion engines after 2035 or whatever the year is. And so it really is being driven by, once again, you know, here you have the demand and the supply, right? And so people are like, oh, electric cars, you know, we were very impressed with the initial ones and we're more interested in the automakers saying, oh yeah, there's a market demand and we can get out there front. And then they're looking down the road at the concerns expressed by the people buying cars as well as the governments about the effect of pollution on the climate. And they're saying, you know, we may constrain this. And so the combination of people wanting it, automakers being willing to do it, and the technology being there, and then the governments also doing what they can, whether it's stating of, you know, no more internal combustion engines after this particular year, all coming together to keep this moving forward. So I think to a certain extent there's a natural momentum. And what Hawaii can do is more, I think, on the charging side of it, you know, as well as, like, as Jay mentioned, the Public Utilities Commission and, you know, Hawaiian Electric, you know, looking at how do you have the market signals so that if you do have excess energy and you make it available at, you know, a price that will have folks use it when it's available, you know, there are certain market signals that can be put in place that recognize Hawaii's unique capabilities there.
Can I add a couple of things to that, Maria?
Yeah.
So there are 13,000 electric cars in the state of Hawaii. There are 1 million cars altogether. That's a small fraction. We've been trying to, you know, move to electric cars for 10 or 15 years. And there have been, you know, technological, you know, developments, and General Motors is going to give up gas cars 2035. It's not that far away. So we're moving there, but clearly we're moving fast enough. We used to have state tax credits to incentivize you to buy electric cars. They're gone. I think there are some residual federal ones, but it's not as sweet as it used to be. Maria's right about the charging. There's incentives going for the charging, right? Hawaii Energy, I think, has an incentive. They pay you money. If you're an entrepreneur, they pay you money to install a charging station. And just yesterday, and you should look at ThinkTech Hawaii yesterday, forget what show it was. Oh, it was in the afternoon at 5 o'clock on Monday, with a guy called Moorhead, running a company called EverCharge, young fellow. They are creating and selling chargers for everyone, for the state, and they are getting incentives from the state in order to do that. And their view of it is, the more charging stations you have, the more willing people are going to be to buy electric cars, and they're totally right about that. So it's a chicken egg thing. You got to put the charging stations in, then you buy the cars, and then the cars want the chicken and egg. Anyway, it's going, but not fast enough, in my opinion. But there are incentives, and hopefully we'll continue to have incentives. Next question. Let's see, who's up now? Justin.
There we go. So I do have a question regarding the 2045 plan that the state actually has. So at the rate that it's going at right now, do you guys think that we will hit that goal, or do you think that we might overshoot, or, you know, actually be early on it?
Yeah, it's been nice knowing you guys. I've enjoyed the conversation up till now.
Oh, Jay.
Nobody knows, Justin. Even Maria doesn't know. But it's the multi-billion-dollar question. We're going to make
Actually, that's a trick. He asked a trick question. You know why? Because there's actually another statute, HRS 225P-5, that says that Hawaii needs to produce less than, anyway, net carbon negative as soon as practicable, but no later than 2045. So as soon as practicable. So it's not just, 100% RPS by 2045, because first of all, that really is a requirement on the electric sector.
RPS stands for
renewable portfolio standard.
standard.
Sorry. And that's on the electric sector, right? But this other one, 225P-5, has covers everything. And it says as soon as practicable, but no later than 2045, we're supposed to go net carbon negative. And that includes everything. That includes your transportation sector. So our state objective is actually more than just 100% by 2045.
Yeah, but the question is,
Yeah.
Are we going to get there?
Yeah, and we're going to have to get close.
Well, I would turn the question on, back on you guys. You're getting out of school soon. You will be entrepreneurs. You will be in business. You'll be in technology. You're the generation that's going to do it or not. If you think it's interesting, but you're not going to get involved, well, that's one way of looking at it. If you want to get involved and do something activist and take the state to another plane and make this happen, this is your generation to do it, okay? So when you get home, look in the mirror and ask yourself that question, okay? Well, you are home. You're going home. Whatever. Okay, Khervin, you're up. What do you got for a question? Why don't you see if you can stump the chumps?
So one question that I have is that we're proposing all these plans, renewable, non-renewable, we're proposing all of these plans, but one question is the economic question: who's gonna pay for it? Is Hawaii able to pay for itself, since we're solely relying on tourism, and we know that from COVID, it's been declining, and our economy standard on the state is also declining. So if we propose a plan, who's gonna pay for it, and will we have enough money to build it or to implement it? So yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that is a great question. Corey,
It
I hope you take note of this fabulous question that he came up with. This
It
is really
is.
center of the channel kind of question. Overarches everything. Really important question. That's thinking out of the box, Khervin. So what do you think? Where's the money come from? You got your checkbook, Maria?
We're already paying for it, right? It's not like we're not already using energy and already paying for these things. The only thing where maybe, that hasn't really been captured, the externalities, the cost of the externalities hasn't been captured along the way. But we are paying for energy. And so that is the amount that we have available, in the energy budget. But we're also paying for the other parts of we're trying to diversify our economy, right? If Hawaii's coming up with energy solutions is actually a way to improve our economy and strengthen our economy and develop, this knowledge-based economy, there's a lot of potential there. So it's not just a cost, it's also an opportunity, especially for Hawaii, because we're recognized as leaders in this area. We have all these different resources. We have some very smart, talented folks working on these things. We are small, but with the interconnection with the internet and so forth, as we've seen in this past year, working with folks in other places is actually possible. And so we're not as isolated as we may be used to thinking about geographically. So there is a lot of potential for us in this area. And, so I don't see it as something that is just going to siphon away energy and resources from other areas. I actually think that we're going to come out ahead on this, especially if we focus on Hawaii's strengths, which includes working together and communicating and things like Jay Fidell's program and good teachers, and you guys are brilliant. So,
but this is a question that is always central in energy, because people get excited about renewables, as excited as you guys are about renewables. In the next session, maybe they're not so excited about renewables. So it slips down on the legislative policy priority list. Okay, and then they don't care so much, and they don't want to put any state money into it. And then the year after that, maybe they get more concerned about it and put more money in. So it's a subject, they say that democracies are tumultuous, and Hawaii has that. We have that. We have a tumultuous democracy. And people don't agree on everything, and they get involved in which priority is first, and they don't like it when you spend money on the other guy's project, spend money on my project, kind of thing. So at the end of the day, actually, Khervin, maybe you should run for office. Think about it, so you can straighten all this out at the legislature. Point is, it's an ongoing question. This question is always asked for every incentive. Bottom line is, if I have an old oil burning plant generating power, and there's still some in the state, that's been standing there for 50 or 60 years, and nobody has put much money into developing that infrastructure in all that time. And I make up my mind, I want to do renewables, and I got to go out and buy, install, and permit all the renewable facilities to replace the coal or the oil burning plant. That's plenty expensive. That costs a lot of money. And somewhere, it's got to come from somewhere. Now, some of it may be federal funds. Some of it will have to come out of the state treasury. Some of it will come from the ratepayers. There's multiple sources. But at the end of the day, if you make up your mind, you want to save the environment. If you make up your mind, this is a high priority. If you make up your mind, you want to limit climate change, then you do it. Whatever it costs, you make it happen. You don't get stymied by the cost. I think that's all the time we have, Corey. So I would ask Maria to summarize this discussion and leave the message she would like to leave with these guys at Farrington. What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you compare the price of the renewables to the price of oil, it's actually cheaper. Anyway, so yeah, that's the short-term concern here. But on the longer term, I'm very encouraged by the interest and the knowledge and the intelligence and the you guys have had some really good insights about what's interesting, what's important, what's potential, for Hawaii in our energy area. So I think you guys are really on the right track, and I want to thank you.
And thank you so much for inviting us as well. I think that what you just said as well earlier about the tumultuous state Senate and state House, and how bills pass and lobbyists get things passed. And I think one of the things that our youth can also do is put pressure on their elected representatives, even before they are eligible to vote, because like you said earlier, these are the students who will be fulfilling this 2045 goal and thinking about our energy future. So thank you so much for inviting us on to your show.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you for organizing and bringing them down. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Khervin. And thank you, Maria Tome. So nice to have this talk.
Thank you as well.
We'll do it again. Aloha.